Hello, Grace.
Hello. Good
What's
morning,
up?
Jack. Good
How
afternoon,
are
Jack.
ya? Good afternoon
I'm
for me.
good. Yes. How is it over there on the East
Things are
Coast?
good here. Things are good over in this part of the world.
Nice.
Yeah, just vibing, but I'm about to be on your side of the world soon.
Oh,
Which
true,
will be
true,
fun.
true. Wow, yeah. Good times.
Yeah.
Being on site.
Yes. Well, while we're waiting for everyone to trickle in, I will just say hello to the world. Today, we are going to be talking about video podcasting and whether or not video is now not just an added bonus for podcasts, but if it is actually a necessity that like every podcast needs to be doing. I can say just from the beginning, I feel like I have a lot of experience with this firsthand. I used to have a podcast that was my main source of income for a couple years, and we had a video element, so I can talk all about this
Yes.
from a firsthand perspective. And we will also dive into some of the news stories about video podcasts, and just go through some of the top podcasts out there and take a look at them and consider why they don't have video elements, and talk about video at large, because I think this is not just a conversation necessarily about audio only, but could also be applied to things like written content. Does all written content need video elements now as well? So that's what we're getting into today. So strap in.
Yeah. All right. Question for the audience, though, before we get started. Does anyone listen to podcasts? Or if you have your own podcast, I'd love to hear, because I think that is an interesting discussion, too. Jack, do you listen to podcasts yourself?
Admittedly, no.
Yeah, interesting.
Hey, Chanda, welcome. Hope I'm
Hello.
apologies if not. Yeah, so I like I said, I was a podcast creator, and no, I don't really listen to podcasts. I don't find them. My hot take is that audio only. I don't really listen to anything audio only. I'm a video
not even like video
person.
podcasts. So do you watch video podcasts or not?
I kind of don't do that either.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. I feel like, at least personally, like making one myself, it was already so much time. Like I would listen to my own podcast back over and over, and that was what I did. But not a big podcast listener myself. How about you?
Interesting. I have my phases. I think the thing for me with audio specifically is like, most of the time, if I'm listening to audio, it's when I'm commuting or trying to just like vibe to something while I'm doing something else, like washing the dishes or whatever. And I kind of would rather just listen to music. I think with podcasts, like I have found some of them very interesting and informational, and like I've learned a lot from them. Or like when I was studying Chinese, so I was listening to Chinese podcasts, which definitely helped. But I think honestly, it takes a lot of effort for me to concentrate on them.
Yeah,
and
totally.
I'll be like doing my thing and then be like, oh, I just didn't listen to like 10 minutes of this whole episode. Do I rewind? Do I just like keep going? So I think the audio only thing is like, I have to really concentrate still. And maybe other people are better at multitasking, or like you're sitting down and you just like have a podcast you really like. So I don't know. It's occasional for me, not as much anymore as like during the pandemic, for example. But it is interesting too. Of like, I think creating a podcast is so different from listening to them.
Totally.
Which your story is probably proves that point too.
Yeah. T. Claire is a podcast listener.
Nice.
And Chanda wants to find some to walk to, which I feel like is what you're getting at, Grace, is that, most of the time, I feel like podcasts, interestingly, aren't as maybe, like the attention that you're giving to podcasts aren't as intentional as they are for maybe a video where you like have to pretty much be sat down watching it, eyes glued, ears listening. And so I think, in some ways, the audio-only format can be difficult that way to captivate people.
Right.
Yeah, I think, myself. So I can tell you about my podcast. I had a podcast that, like I said, was my main source of income for a while. and we had around 35,000 listeners per episode, but that was including
Yeah.
on YouTube. And
Okay.
on audio apps, less than 50% of our listens were on audio apps. The majority of our listens and watch views were on YouTube. And I found it to be really interesting and really, really helpful to have a video component. We had a couple, one of the best things we talk about all the time at Kapwing, right, is like repurposing your content for other things. And so we would repurpose our video episodes of our podcast into clips for social media. So posting on TikTok, Instagram Reels, things like that.
Right.
And we had some like pretty viral clips, they got like millions of views or millions of likes. And that drove like a ton of traffic to our podcast. And so I think like video for us was like a really great growth mechanism for our podcast that we definitely didn't have with just audio. And so I think that is why, for me, like if you're trying to grow, I think the video is super, super important. Which brings me to my opinion, which is that entertainment podcasts definitely need video. Informative podcasts can get away without it. Because I just feel as though with entertainment, you're trying to get the context of seeing people smile, seeing them laugh, seeing their reaction to talking to a guest. Informative podcasts, it's actually easier, I think, to later make a video for those clips out of like B-roll and screenshots and articles and things like that. So you don't actually necessarily need the video to grow, because you can make one. Whereas I feel like with entertainment podcasts, you need the video from the jump if you wanna use clips as a growth mechanism.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I don't think that's a hot take at all. I think that's like, I think people don't necessarily realize it, but I think this is like, I think people are starting to. I feel like it comes back to why people watch or listen to podcasts or watch podcasts. I think for entertainment, a lot of times when I talk to people who are really into podcasts, they're like, yeah, it feels like I'm hanging out with my favorite creators, like you're literally just like in a part of this conversation. A lot of times they can be very, open about their own lives. So you feel like you're just talking to a friend. And I guess when you're listening to the podcast, that feels like a phone call or something, but it's emphasized even more, that feeling when you're watching them, especially if there's multiple people on the podcast, like interacting with each other, and you feel like you're just like able to watch them, see these like smiles and laughs, and like if they're talking to guests, or like if you have a famous, I remember your podcast, you'd have like these celebrity guests on, it's like, that's so fun to see you guys like interact with them in the room instead of just listen to audio. So I definitely agree with that.
And I think we also see like the top podcasts, like the ones I think of for entertainment are like H3 is super big. They are always video. And then of course, Joe Rogan is video as well. Call Her Daddy is like another one that is video forward. And so I think like all these entertainment platforms, you pretty much need it. But then I think about also like informative things like New York Times podcasts or The Daily, or one of my favorite ones like Hidden Brain from NPR, which is all about psychology. Like they don't really have or need video, because they also, this is another opinion I guess I have, if you already have an established brand, like these big companies, like New York Times, like NPR, it's less important, but for growth, video is super important. And I think it also depends on your age demographic that you're going after too. Like anyone that's going after a Gen Z or maybe even millennial audience, like you need to have video. But if you're going for maybe like a more Gen X, baby boomer audience, maybe it's less necessary.
I think this is something that will change over time too. Like as Gen Z gets older and as we are more adjusted to video, like I feel like everything is video now, or people prefer that a lot of times. or it's like an easier way to convey information that sticks in your brain more. I do feel like this will start shifting where even established brands, if you don't have a video presence, like maybe right now you're doing okay because you have this you have a lot of listeners on Spotify already or whatever. But I think if you continue to not invest in video, like you're probably going to fall behind at some point.
Yeah.
I mean, it's also like the thing where you're relying so much on like one distribution source or like medium, in the same way that if you're only making videos for YouTube, like podcasts aside, if you're only making like long form videos on YouTube, not trying to like repurpose them for other platforms like TikTok or Instagram or whatever, like you are kind of losing out on some of that too. So I do feel like, brands and creators have to find good ways to efficiently like repurpose all their stuff for these different places, because we've seen that like the platforms themselves aren't super reliable at times.
Right. Yeah, it's like definitely it's like when in doubt, add a video component, because you can have that live on YouTube, but then you can repurpose that, right, just audio only on all the podcast platforms. So people can have the choice to not watch the video. But if you just do audio, they don't have that choice, and you're alienating a community of video watchers.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I also think this comes back to like these audio platforms a lot of times don't have great recommendation algorithms too. Like I think Spotify's trying a little more. Like I do see them recommending more podcasts to the top, but it's just not the same as like getting recommendations on YouTube, for example, where you can kind of start watching a clip or whatever. And so, I think if you're starting out a podcast on your own, you're not a super established brand. I think only relying on these audio platforms, it's just going to be hard for people to find you.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
That's like one of the main things I think is holding the podcast sector back. Is like, it's so hard to find new podcasts. There's no way to like dip your toe in, right, and get just a like a super cut or like a little snippet of what a podcast is going to be like, which I think is difficult.
That's actually that's so interesting, because I feel like it's like probably the only thing I can think of where you can't really preview it at all. I guess you can, usually it's like a title and then a little like sentence description, but you can't necessarily just like listen to it like it doesn't autoplay a snippet, which it probably should. I feel like actually I've seen Spotify test something like that, but that I don't know where it went. Like I don't see it anymore. Versus like on YouTube, it like auto plays the video, you see it, or anything text based like Twitter, it's like you can clearly like scan it fast. It's I think audio, social media, audio podcasting, I think still has so much room to grow here. So it'll be interesting to see over time.
Yeah, I think based on this, it seems like we're both pretty pro video. Do you think audio only content is dying? Hot take. But
spicy.
Yeah. What do you think?
I don't know if. Okay, well, I like thinking back to like what was the first kind of major audio content source. It was probably radio, right? Like you would turn on the radio in your car or at home and you just listen to whatever is on. And I think over time we've seen like that evolve into on demand, like you get to choose what you want to listen to on these different apps like Spotify or Pandora or whatever. And then recently we've seen like, Clubhouse and like more of these just spontaneous live audio events happening. So I kind of do. I think I kind of do overall think audio only content is like not getting super popular for sure. Like, I mean, I don't know anyone who really listens to the radio regularly because they want to. Like, it's either because their car doesn't have, like you can't use your phone in it. But most people I know would just listen to like Spotify or something. And then I guess podcasting, I think audio only podcasts are still pretty popular, but more and more of them are going to video. So then it's not really audio only.
Right.
So I guess overall, I think, and we've seen the, the social audio stuff like Clubhouse kind of had its moment and is now not really a
Yeah.
thing anymore. Like Twitter Spaces is like has 3 employees working on it now, apparently, down from 100, like that kind
Wow,
of
that's
thing, you know?
crazy.
Yeah. What do you
Yeah.
think,
What's going on, the game bomb?
Jack?
Welcome. Yeah, I do kind of think that audio only content is dying. I think obviously there's always going to be people who listen to it with any type of content, but
Yeah.
I think, like I said, I think there's a generational expectation for video now for younger generations, and so I think that will stay. I think younger
Mm,
generations, even than the ones we have now in the future, will probably be even more interested
yeah.
in video than in audio, and then frankly in just like written
Mm,
word. So I'm even
mm,
thinking, like, is written content slowly dying as well? Like, do
hmm.
blog posts and do um, landing pages and all of these things, do they need to start having video components as well? And honestly, I err towards like yes.
Yeah,
Like, I don't
interesting.
know if people are going to read a blog post when they could just watch a video on the same topic. And so I think like the
Mm,
video will win ultimately.
mm, mm.
Um, so yeah,
Yeah.
I think yes, I do think audio only is kind of dying.
I do think though, like in a lot of cases, to me, audio only stuff like it essentially comes down to, I feel like audio only content is sometimes not an efficient way to get information. Like it's one thing
Mhm.
if you're doing it for entertainment, but then yeah, it's like if I really want to be entertained, I'd rather also have a visual component, unless I'm doing something where I'm like doing another task and I can't watch.
Yeah.
But
But then
so
it's
yeah,
like
I
the
agree. I
value
think
of your listen isn't as high anyway. Like from a marketing
right.
perspective, like if you're
That's
not
true.
sitting down to watch it, um, like
Right.
that's kind of bad for the advertiser, for the company who's doing it as well. Like they want you to be
Mm,
listened in, I think. And so like again, video, like having someone sit down to watch that video and have a video component, I think is higher value.
yeah. 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 And it's kind of interesting. Like a lot of this does stem on like the marketing and the ad industry of like where do companies feel it's worth their money to put advertisements? Because I feel like, and you've talked a lot about this in the past, like podcast ads are a
Oof.
huge source. That's like a
Yeah.
really stable source of income. It can be a lot of times, even compared to like YouTube AdSense revenue.
Yeah.
And yeah, maybe that'll start shifting.
Yeah, I can say I've never made more money from content than from podcasting. So
Yeah.
it's incredibly lucrative. But
Interesting.
yeah, so yeah. Yeah, interesting. The game bomb. I think Grace actually said something similar to this. Podcast nowadays is like a transition from radio into TV. Grace said something like this like right
Mm,
before you came. I think it's completely the same thing. Like,
right.
yeah,
And
no,
I wonder,
like,
I feel like, what were
go
you
ahead.
saying?
No, I was gonna say like before, like, families would like hang out and revolve around the radio in their home, and now that like isn't a thing.
Hmm. I don't know the full history of the radio and how it like got such great adoption and stuff like that, but it does seem like radio was a thing that, it would catch you in moments where you were doing other things. So instead of only being able to sit in front of the TV, now you can consume content and advertisements any time of day, regardless
Hmm.
of what you're doing. Um, but now I think people are realizing like, oh, you can also have a video playing in the background. It doesn't have to only be audio. And like
Yeah.
maybe the video does a better job of like actually pulling you away from the thing you're doing to like go and sit down and watch. Like even if you are doing your dishes and you're like, oh wait, what are they doing? And you're like watching it anyways, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, some interesting like psychology there, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so it seems like we're both pro video. I think
Yeah.
then the question becomes, okay, if there are podcasters watching right now without a video aspect, what can podcasters do to add a video component without so much extra work? Because I know that was
Mm,
I mean, we both know this. With any type of content, like an added layer of work is
yeah.
always unwelcomed, pretty much. So
Yes.
um, I'd be interested in hearing about what type of video component you think you like to watch and how they can
Yeah.
accomplish that easily.
Yeah, I think I think that is the main barrier to why people don't have videos. It's like, I think most podcasters would say like, yeah, you don't need to sell me on the value of video. I would love to have video, but it's, X times more work. I don't have that time. I think there are a lot of different ways you can do this. And like, obviously it depends on the style of your podcast and what you want, what your vision for your podcast looks like, what kind of an audience you're trying to attract. But I think one easy way is just, like when you're recording your podcast, set up a camera, just like put a camera on. It doesn't need to be fancy. Like sometimes the fancier ones, it's like, I feel like just do what you need to do to have some sort of video going. Like, and the ones I have seen, like even your podcast, you still have like wires and stuff in you're wearing your mics, and it's not like it's like a studio, like professional thing where it's like everything is perfect, but I think that adds to the value of like, it's a conversation. It makes it fun because you feel like you're really there, and it's just like, it's like a casual thing. So yeah, just like setting up a camera, if that's if you're able to do that. Or
Totally.
I think also just like, especially if it's more of an informative type of podcast, or you're like, talking about news, or it's not necessarily the entertainment kind. I think there's a lot of AI tools, including like Kapwing. We do this too, where you can, take your transcript essentially of your video, pop it into an AI tool like Kapwing's documented video, article video that we're building. We have the beta up, and then it'll just like spit out a video with stock video and photo added with the text on it. That you can put your voiceover. I think and then it's just like an easy clip you can throw up on socials. That's one way to do it. I think just try it.
I think that's smart. Absolutely.
But any other tips?
Yeah, I mean, I'm like, okay, the call is coming from inside the house. Like, look at what we're doing right now. Like, it's so easy to just even remotely do a podcast like this, where it's live. It doesn't even have to be live. You can record on the session on the platform we're using, but it keeps it easy. It records it and packages it all in one. Right now we're using StreamYard, just in case anyone's wondering. And you could throw this up on YouTube, and like, it's not like this is super fancy. Right. It just adds though a layer of personality, I think, and complexity to people's thoughts, and personalization and connection, I think. So I think even if you're remote, because I think a lot of people probably don't do video because they have a remote podcast where their co-host doesn't live right there, or their guests don't live there, and they're getting guests from all over the world. And it's like super easy still to create a video component, even if you're a remote podcast.
Right.
And I think, it's like super easy.
And then we can take the audio from this, if we want to post it still on like a Spotify or audio platform, just grab the audio from this video and post it. Or like add your intro, whatever.
So maybe like and maybe a tip, I guess, is just starting to think about your content less so as an audio podcast, but like thinking about it video first in a way. Because like you said, like it's so easy to take a video and turn it into a podcast in like literally probably 3 clicks. So like maybe focusing on the video components will help you I don't know, just contextualize that in your brain about like, oh, how can we level up this podcast and level up the video? And then the audio that comes from it is no big deal after that's already done.
For sure.
Yeah. Cool.
Interesting. Someone asked here, do you feel like the messaging of podcasts may be altered and diluted if they take as revenue?
Do you mean if they take ad revenue?
If they take ad revenue.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think for entertainment, I don't. I think entertainment is, it's not that serious, right? But if you're having a news source, I guess it can feel a little weird to, yeah, we gotcha, T. Claire. I think it can feel a little bit strange, I guess, but then I think about like all, news has ads in it all the time. And practically every media platform must take ads because ultimately we live in a capitalist society. People got to make money. So I think as long as the ads aren't I don't know, as long as it's like a good ad fit. So if it's not an ad about something political, right? If you have a political podcast, or if it's not an ad about like, I don't know, a DNA thing, if you're like a science podcast, I don't know. I think it's okay ultimately. Like if you have an ad about like a game, an app, like I don't care, but there are certain ads I think people should just be careful about taking. But ultimately, like, I feel like we can't fault the creator for needing to make money because it's the world we live in, personally.
Yeah. I don't think it will affect like in a specific episode if there's an ad. I don't think it affects the content of the episode too much in most cases, but I do think like probably, and I think this is the same with any content creation platform, like on YouTube especially. Like I think a lot of times creators do start to, like do episodes or like in a certain niche that they think will get money. I don't know. I think that's like a general thing that like all creators have to grapple with is like, how much are you going to let the monetization drive your content? Versus like making the content you want. Because I don't know, I've gone through this myself. It's like I had a channel in high school and I did one video that got like a lot of views, like over 1 million views. And it was just something I wanted to make. And I was like, oh, like I didn't expect that to get so many views. But then I just continued to make whatever I wanted. And the other videos didn't really do that well. They got maybe like a couple thousand views, which, I was just doing it because I wanted to, because I wanted to share like my things that I cared about. So I wasn't too concerned with the money, but I definitely started getting into this mindset of like, whoa, like I should do more videos like that initial video that got over 1 million views, because clearly that's what people like. So I think it does start like affecting your mindset a little bit of what content you actually will make. I think that's with any business anywhere, not even like content creation. I think you do have to think about like, what is something you care about that is also a need that people have, and matching those. And it's definitely hard, but I think it's something that like we all have to grapple with.
Cool. Well, thank you all for watching. I think this probably wraps up our conversation today. Oh, one thing I did want to mention actually is we are going to change channels for this show. We actually made a second channel for Kapwing that's going to be more about conversations, more about telling stories, sharing tips and tricks for growing with video. And so if you'd like to head over there, first link in the description. Go head over there. We don't have any content on there yet, so you guys will be the absolute first to subscribe over there.
Subscribers.
And we will transition over to there very soon. You'll start seeing content on there probably as early as today, actually.
Ooh, exciting.
Sorry, Arcane Lover, you just missed us. But yeah, I would love if you guys wanted to continue supporting our show over there. We might do maybe 1 or 2 more over on this channel, but eventually we will be doing them all on that channel. So make sure to subscribe over there if you want to keep up with us. And as per usual, thanks for chatting, everyone.
Yeah, I'm curious to see who the first subscriber is. You guys can get medals for first, second, third from in the imaginary realm. We'll give you a medal.
Whoa!
Wow! Oh my gosh!
Thank you, T. Claire. You're awesome. Oh my goodness. Thank you. All right, you guys, have a great day. Have a great weekend. Have a great 3-day weekend. Monday off.
Ooh, if you're in the US, I guess.
Oh yeah, if you're in the US. Congratulations to the Game Bomb for being the first subscriber. And we'll see you
Yo,
guys
amazing.
in the next one. Later.
Bye, y'all.